Have you ever looked at your passport and thought, it's not expired, so I'm fine, right? That's what people think. Until the gate agent says, sorry, we can't let you board. So many travelers get tripped up by the same misunderstandings, passed around like travel wisdom that's been outdated for years. So in this video, we're breaking down the US passport myths that still catch travelers off guard in 2026, so your trip doesn't get derailed before it even starts. And stay with me for myth 7, because it's the one that wrecks timelines the fastest. You hear a few weeks and assume that means passport in hand. All right, let's start with myth 1. If you've ever said, it's still valid, this one is going to hit a little too close to home. This is the one that creates those airport moments where you're staring at your passport like it betrayed you. Because in your head, it's simple. The expiration date is in the future, so you're good. But for a lot of destinations, not expired isn't the standard. They want extra validity, sometimes months beyond your return, so you're not showing up with a passport that's about to tap out. That's where the famous 6-month rule comes from. Places like Thailand, Indonesia, can expect that extra cushion even if your trip is short. And then there are places that use different math. Schengen is the one that gets brutally specific. Your passport has to be valid at least 3 months after the day you plan to leave Schengen, and it also has to be issued within the last 10 years when you enter. And here's why you find out at the airport. The airline checks your paperwork before they let you board. It's basically them stopping a bigger nightmare before it starts. How do you avoid it? Do one quick calendar check that takes 30 seconds. Picture this. You're flying to Paris, and your trip ends June 10th. You look at your passport, and it expires July 1st. In your brain, that's plenty. 3 extra weeks. But Schengen doesn't care that it's not expired. They're looking for at least 3 months after the day you leave. So if you're leaving June 10th, your passport needs to be good until at least September 10th. That July 1st expiration, that's a hard no. So the move is simple. Before you ever pack, pull up your return date, then add whatever buffer your destination requires. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6. And while you're in there, glance at the issue date too, because that over 10 years rule has ruined way too many trips. All right, with that cleared up, let's talk about the passport that lives in everyone's wallet and why it's not the full power version people think it is. This myth exists because the passport card looks so legit. It's sleek, it fits in your wallet, and it has the word passport on it. So people naturally assume, perfect, why would I carry that bulky passport book when I've got the upgraded, travel-sized version? Except the card isn't a smaller passport book, it's a different tool. The US passport card is built for a specific kind of travel. Land, borders, and sea travel between the US and places like Canada, Mexico, Bermuda, and parts of the Caribbean. If you're driving across a border or doing certain cruise routes, the card can be super convenient. Where people get burned is when they treat a close international trip like it's automatically easier. Have you ever thought, it's just Mexico, I'll be fine with the card? That's exactly the misunderstanding. Close doesn't matter, the airline itinerary does. The second you're flying internationally, the passport book is what keeps you moving, and if you show up with only the card, there's no smooth recovery. It turns into rebooking, extra fees, and that sinking feeling that the trip is starting with a problem you didn't need. So here's the clean rule to remember. If you're leaving the US by air, think passport book. The card is great. It's just not the all-access pass version people think it is. Honestly, pin that rule to your travel checklist, because it saves people every single week. And that leads perfectly into myth 3, because it's the same pattern, a document that's totally real, totally useful, and wildly misunderstood. Let's talk about real ID. You know that little star on your driver's license? The one that took 3 trips to the DMV and 1 minor identity crisis to get? A lot of people see that star and think it means, cool, I'm officially travel ready. But that star is a domestic thing. Real ID is for getting through TSA on US flights. That's it. It doesn't help you enter another country, and it doesn't replace a passport on an international itinerary. Here's the clean rule that saves you from overthinking. If you're flying internationally, forget the star, your passport is the only thing that matters. And the funny part is, a lot of people rush to get real ID because they think it's the better option, while they already have the ultimate ID sitting at home, a passport. If you're flying domestic and you don't have real ID yet, your passport still works at TSA. No drama. So think of real ID like an upgrade for your regular license, so domestic travel stays smooth. But for international travel, the passport is the whole game. And once people feel covered, that's when the next myth gets dangerous, because they start assuming a US passport means automatic entry everywhere. This myth is pure overconfidence. People hear strong passport and turn it into automatic entry. Then they land after a long flight, walk up to immigration feeling untouchable, and suddenly they're the one getting pulled into extra questions. Yes, a US passport opens a lot of doors. But plenty of countries still want something before you show up. Either a real visa, an e-visa, or a travel authorization that you have to get approved online first. China and Russia can be straight up visa first. India trips people up with e-visas. And then there are the ones that feel like, I didn't know I needed permission for this. Like the UK's ETA, Australia's ETA, and the EU's ETIS for the Schengen area once that system goes live. Even in places where Americans don't need a visa ahead of time, you can still get asked for proof you're leaving, where you're staying, or other basics that show you're a legit short-term visitor. But you know what's the most brutal part? If your visa or ETA or ETIS isn't approved, the airline can stop you before you even board. It's basically them preventing a bigger nightmare, getting denied at arrival, and having to send you right back. And if you're a dual citizen, there's one small tip that can seriously save you. When you're entering or leaving the United States, use your US passport. But once you're outside the US, there are situations where your other passport can make life easier for visas or entry. Totally legal, just don't mix them up on the US parts of the trip. What country surprised you with a visa requirement or extra entry step? Drop it in the comments. Even one answer can save someone from a really expensive lesson. And this gets brutal with kids in tow, and then you realize your child's documents don't work the way you assumed. That's myth 5. This one is sneaky because it sounds like it could be true, especially if you grew up hearing stories about families adding a kid to paperwork, or you assume your child is basically traveling under your umbrella. I've seen families show up at the airport totally prepared, matching outfits, stroller, the whole production, then realize the toddler doesn't have their own passport. Not on mom's, not linked to dad's, just not there. And once you're at the airport, there's no magical workaround. And there's one hard rule a lot of parents miss. Every US citizen needs their own passport to fly internationally. Yes, even newborns. Border control checks individuals, so your child needs a passport with their own photo and details. Even worse, kids' passports don't last as long. Adults get 10 years. Children under 16 only get 5. So families pull out a passport that looks totally legit, and it's quietly expired. The easiest way to avoid the panic is to treat kids' passports like a school form you can't miss. Pull them out months ahead, check the expiration date for each child, and make sure it's valid for the whole itinerary, not just the first flight. Don't assume the kid is covered because the adults are, because one kid's passport can cancel the whole family's trip. Now, the petty one, your passport can be valid and still get blocked because of what's inside it, or what happened to it. I'm going to tell you something that sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's very real. Your passport isn't graded only by the expiration date. Some places care a lot about what's inside the book, specifically whether you still have clean space for stamps or visas. And yes, this can be a hard requirement, not a nice to have. South Africa is a classic example. They require 2 consecutive blank visa pages per entry, not endorsement pages. And if you don't have them, you can get denied entry. Then there's the damage problem, which people underestimate until it bites them. A little water ripple on the photo page, a coffee stain in the wrong spot, a torn corner, a bent cover that won't lie flat. Anything that makes the document look altered or hard to read can get you pulled aside. You don't want the first time you notice your passport is falling apart to be 5 minutes before boarding. Do you ever check your passport the way you check your luggage? Like actually open it and look at it before the trip? Because that tiny 2-minute habit saves you from the dumbest travel killer. Now here's the upgrade most frequent travelers never take, even though it's sitting right there. When you renew or apply, you can choose a larger passport book with more visa pages at no extra cost. If you travel a lot, that one tiny checkbox is basically future you saying, I don't want to run out of pages again. So yeah, passports are weird. They're part ID, part stamp book, part please don't spill coffee on me, and the slogan still stands. Your passport is basically a stamp book. When it runs out of pages, the fun runs out too. And if this myth makes you realize you might need a replacement, the next myth is where people really get burned. Processing time. Passport timelines don't behave like a microwave. You can't go, last time it took a month, so this time it'll be a month. That's how people end up doing panic math at midnight, staring at a flight confirmation and a passport that's about to expire. Here's what actually happens. Processing times change throughout the year because demand changes. Late winter into summer is when everyone suddenly remembers they want to travel, and the system gets slammed. Then you've got the calmer stretch, where things are usually easier to breathe. October through December is literally the slower season they tell people to use if they can. So when someone tells you, you're fine, mine came back fast, the real question is, fast when? Because a passport timeline from someone who applied in the fall isn't the same timeline for someone applying right before spring break or summer travel. And the posted numbers can look comforting. Maybe it says 4 to 6 weeks routine, 2 to 3 weeks expedited. Cool. But treat that like a snapshot, not a promise carved into stone. Also, those weeks don't include mailing. It can take up to 2 weeks for your application to reach them, and up to 2 weeks to get the passport back after it's mailed. So 4 to 6 weeks can quietly turn into 6 to 10 weeks depending on mailing and timing. If you're planning an international trip, the move is to check the official processing page close to when you apply and build buffer like an adult, not like an optimist. Because nothing feels dumber than losing a whole trip over paperwork that could have been handled early. Alright, we just covered the myths that block boarding, wreck renewals, and create airport panic. Let's wrap this up so you've got a clean game plan for 2026. Most passport disasters don't happen because people are careless. They happen because people are confident, based on myths. So do yourself a favor. Treat your passport like a piece of travel equipment, not a souvenir. The goal isn't to be paranoid, it's to be prepared enough that your trip starts with boarding, not bargaining. If any of these myths surprised you, drop a comment with the one you've believed before, or the one that almost got you. And if you know someone who's planning an international trip right now, send them this video. It's a lot cheaper than learning this at the gate. Hit like if this saved you a headache, subscribe for more travel survival stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.